All right. Well, good evening, everybody. Just want to give you a short introduction. Monica is going to take roll. We have to just document that we have a quorum. And after that, you see in the agenda, there's a couple of formalities we're going to have to take care of, including administering oaths of office. And then there's a form that y'all need to fill out, and then we'll get to the city clerk later. And this is a temporary board, and so we have no normal, like the normal boards, where you've had elections and all that. So today what we'll do is we'll actually have an election for chairperson and vice chair. And then after that, I will step out of the way after a short. I do want to do a short introduction after we do the elections about how we're going to approach this, but then after that, I will turn it over to you all. Start and run with it. So first we can have the roll call.
Okay. Commissioner Arevalo. Commissioner Ayala. Commissioner Ayala.
Present.
Commissioner Burleson.
Present.
Commissioner Gerber. Garber, pardon me, I'm
Present.
sorry.
Present.
Commissioner Meeks.
Present.
Commissioner Rourke.
Here. Present.
Commissioner Tomitis.
Here. Here.
And then Monica is going to administer your oaths of office. We're going to do it as a group instead of individually.
Get there. Okay, I'll read it out and then you just want to say your name. Let's see, so I solemnly swear or affirm that I will faithfully execute the duties of the office of the Charter Review Commission of the city of San Marcos, Texas, and will to the best of my ability preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution, laws, and ordinances of the United States.
I was going to say, actually, let them, so they can repeat it after you, just read it a few words at a time. Just say,
Okay.
I state your name.
I state your name.
Okay, I state your name,
John
Right.
Tomitis,
solemnly swear or affirm
solemnly swear
Affirm.
that I will faithfully execute
and faithfully execute
duties of the office
duties of the office
Charter Review Commissioner
of Charter Review Commissioner
of the city of San Marcos,
of the city of San Marcos.
Texas, and will to the best of my ability
Will to the best of my ability
preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution,
preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution,
laws, and ordinances of the United States,
laws and
Laws and
ordinances of the
ordinances of
United
the
States,
of this state,
of this state,
and of this city, so help me
of
God.
this, and of this city, so help me God. Okay. You are sworn. You're sworn.
Right, you're official. Are you good there?
Okay.
Okay. So what we do with election of chair, I think the way we can do this, if there's more than one nominee, just, by the way, you don't need a second for nominations. It's just, sometimes it's tradition. Just want to get a second, but it's not a requirement. So if you can nominate yourselves or you can nominate other members, and we can just start clockwise.
I nominate John Tomatis.
Any other nominations?
Second.
Any other nominations? All right, we can just take a quick roll call, make it official.
Commissioner Arevalo.
Aye.
Commissioner Ayala,
Yes.
Commissioner Burleson,
Aye.
Commissioner Garber,
Aye.
Commissioner Meeks,
Aye.
Commissioner Rourke,
Aye.
Commissioner Tomitis.
Aye.
Right. Mr. Chair, I guess you can take over
Oh,
and handle the election of vice chair.
okay. Are there any nominations for vice chair? Amy,
I'll second it.
any other nominations for vice chair? Okay, so hearing none, if you'll call the roll on that one.
I'm sorry, who was the second?
Uh,
I did.
And again, it's just more, it's not a requirement, but it's traditional a lot of times with nominations.
Commissioner Arevalo,
Aye.
Commissioner Ayala,
Aye.
Commissioner Burleson,
Aye.
Commissioner Garber,
Aye.
Commissioner Meeks,
Aye.
Commissioner Rourke,
Aye.
Commissioner Tomitis.
Aye.
And just FYI, one of the things, a lot of y'all might be in nonprofits, and it's real typical for like nonprofit boards to just say all in favor. It just makes it easier since we're a public body to just officially do a roll call even on kind of basic matters. We do roll call vote. It's just cleaner that way for the record. So one of the things you see in your packet is we're going to discuss, consider approval of the meeting schedule. Then we're going to get into some city council suggestions as to what areas they would like you to explore. And then, of course, you all can discuss other matters that you all feel are important related to that. One of the things I just kind of wanted to emphasize, probably most of you all are pretty experienced, or I don't know, it seems like y'all have been active in different boards and whatnot, is it's real helpful if you want to discuss an item or propose something. I would just remind y'all that it's helpful to get a second when you make a motion. Because the whole idea, first of all, we have very little time to do this. We're going to meet weekly or almost weekly and try and cover a lot of ground in a short period of time. And if you don't get a second on an item, that means other members are not interested in pursuing it, right? And so it's like at that point, it's helpful to just move on. But so a second is helpful to get an item up for discussion. I try to stay out of y'all's way as best I can and not get involved in your deliberations, but this one thing I wanted to kind of emphasize. And other than that, as we go through, I think the chair, I'll just introduce each one with some comments if that's
I have just
okay.
a question for clarification. So are you saying then that this getting a second is just as it works and functions on P and Z? It's just simply to get it on the table for discussion. It doesn't necessarily mean the person who's seconding it is in favor of it. It just simply.
That's correct. Even the person is, yeah, you can actually vote against your own motion at the end of the day, so. But the whole idea of seconds under Robert's rules, at least my understanding has always been that if not one person shows enough interest to second, then it's wasting the time of the body. And I say waste, but it's just to keep the meetings flowing. So. All right. Our next item is discuss and consider approval of the meeting schedule. And again, there are a couple folks here who may have been on this commission before, is that correct? But
I know Amy has.
so y'all know how that goes, and
Yeah.
it's trying to cover a lot of ground, so if.
Yeah, I'll just jump in and see what everybody, is there a particular day of the week that is better, worse, unavailable for the board members? Wednesday's out for you or good?
I'm available Wednesdays up.
Wednesdays after 6, okay.
Is that your only day? Just Wednesdays.
So, I usually work late in the evenings, Tuesdays and Thursdays,
Okay,
8 p.m.
okay,
So really my early day is Wednesdays. I can
okay.
leave a little earlier on Wednesdays.
And of course, the hybrid, the electronic participation is also available for anybody that needs it, as well. Not everybody can make it in to physically in here every meeting. Are you available Mondays by chance?
Also work. What days does?
Well, that's kind of up to the board to try to
have the board head class?
typically Monday through Thursday, one of those days. Fridays are usually out for most people, and obviously,
Tuesday would be hard for some of us on
Yeah.
every second and fourth.
Yeah.
And then council meetings are the
Council
first and
meetings.
third Tuesdays, so.
Tuesdays are probably.
Monday
Thursday
and
is my best
Thursday
for
are
me.
my better days.
Thursday is my better.
Thursday.
Thursday's my
Yeah,
better
me
day
too.
too.
I can meet Thursday, but I'm in the classroom until 2, Tuesday, Thursday, 8 to 2, So after two, Tuesday, Thursday. Or Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
Daniel's saying Thursday too.
Thursday, Wednesday. Yeah,
So does the time kind of vary, like it doesn't have to be after like regular work time? Or
it's
is that-
yeah, so to be typically in the evening, because I think most of us have a day job as well, and so yeah, it'd be after
Okay.
end of day, workday.
Yeah,
Usually,
so Wednesdays work better for me, but
Okay.
if Thursdays is like better for everyone, then I can do Thursdays around 5:30.
okay.
Well, and I can be Wednesday.
Well, what about the alcohol CFP? Or the next one?
But that hasn't been in the evening, that has been-
That's true. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
Yeah.
Unless, yeah, as long as they keep it
during
that
the
way in the
day.
day, Wednesday, keep it Thursday.
Okay, so I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Daniel, please jump in as well. Oh, you're right there. Okay. I think I'm hearing Thursdays for now. As Sam mentioned, sometimes as it gets closer to crunch time and you remember this, Amy, and I hope it's okay if I use everybody's first name because it might get a little bit more often. We might throw a Wednesday in there if it's free for everybody, but I think I'm hearing Thursdays for now. And
I'll have to just, I've got to know ahead of time.
Sure.
I'm usually working until about 10 o'clock on Wednesday night, so I can reschedule, but I just need to know ahead of time.
Yeah. let's keep it Thursdays for now. And then if we have to, as we see our work coming to a completion, because typically I would think we're going to try to get this done sometime in May,
Yes, sir.
because it has to be at the council for the first meeting in
So they can get on the election. Yes, sir.
And then there's a preliminary interim discussion in April.
Yes, sir.
So we should probably be, as far along as we could be before that discussion with council.
When does it need to get on the ballot by?
August.
Right, we called for the election in August.
Call for election.
So we want to have that first week in August, so that the council wants to be able to act on this, by June, July.
Right, prior, but I just wanted to know what that deadline was.
And the other thing we could do, if it's up to y'all, is we could keep a standing agenda item for, setting the meeting dates in case something happens along the way at a particular meeting, it'd be agendized that you could discuss. That's up to y'all. If you want to do that, I could certainly keep that on here.
I
think that would be best.
Well, just given that you're kind of the temporary board and it's not like the P and Z where everything is set and predictable. It would just give you the flexibility at a meeting to say, you know what, I know we talked about Thursdays, but I'm asking that the next meeting, could we possibly move it? Just a suggestion. We could leave
I
that.
think that's a great idea. Yeah, that's a great idea.
Give us that flexibility if we need it. Okay, well, you've got your direction there as far as that goes. And so moving on to item 4, discuss and consider,
This week.
Oh,
I'm sorry,
did y'all agree?
Well, we didn't,
5:30 or
no.
6? If it's gonna be.
I'm sorry, I didn't ask.
I was gonna ask you, so will this be weekly, every Thursday at 5:30? Is that what we're doing, or what does everybody want?
I would say yes. I'd keep it.
Yeah, I'm on the Parks Board on Thursdays, but once a month. The third Thursday,
In the evening.
in the same time, yeah.
How long do these meetings?
Well, I think most people, I know I do, after a couple of 3 hours, I'm kind of done, so I don't know how everybody else feels, but I think the butt gets tired before the head does. So I think it's just time we should probably try to do a hard stop, no later than 8 or 8:30, something like that, if we had to. If it's all right, if we could do this Thursday today, and if I could do the Parks meeting next Thursday and then follow up 2 weeks. I think we can get a lot of this done. We met about every 2 weeks in the last go around of this.
So it doesn't mean-
Yeah, we did about every 2 weeks, and then I think towards the end, we might have thrown one extra meeting in there just for, to button up anything that was still a loose end that we all hadn't agreed on. And of course, as you all know, just like any other board or commission, we have these really good discussions and nothing's really done until we actually vote. And so we're really kind of everybody's gonna get an opportunity to vote twice, right? Because we're gonna vote as we make progress, and then we're gonna vote at the end on the finals. And so there'll be like a final ability to, if you've received new information.
Let's try every other week, and if we're making progress, then we can stick with that. if
Yeah.
we need to.
Yeah.
If I'm on behind, then we'll catch up.
Yeah, and it's just that one third Thursday that is tying me up.
And what day are the city hall meetings?
You mean city council?
No, for the new city hall, what?
Those are Tuesdays.
Oh, what days are those?
Well, those are,
I don't
it's
know.
next Tuesday, right? The 20th.
Okay, yeah, okay, I wasn't sure if it was a Tuesday or
Are those on Tuesdays during the day?
I'm not sure,
No,
I
it's
just
an
wanted to
evening
make sure it
meeting.
wasn't a Thursday.
at
'cause I think
5:30.
Most all of us have that too.
Okay, because won't that conflict with council on Tuesday? Or P and Z?
Yeah, you would
It's
think.
all-
I don't know when they're gonna-
Maybe it's-
Are they?
I'm
You're
not,
talking about the relocate city hall?
Yeah, the steering committee.
I
or
think
whatever.
it's the 20th.
20th.
Is the date, I thought that was a Thursday.
Oh, that's a Thursday.
That's,
I'm
I
sorry.
thought that was Thursday.
But that'll be next Thursday.
Yes,
But we won't be meeting, so we're good.
Yeah.
So maybe that'll be the
Yeah,
flip,
okay.
Okay. Let's just keep that in
So
mind.
let's just. keep that
So I think just to formalize it, I guess it sounds like it's for Thursday in 2 weeks
27th.
at 5:30.
5:30 works for me.
Okay, let's make it official again, just,
So you wanna-
is there anyone opposed? Anyone opposed to that? We can just.
Are we planning to make the meetings 2 hours?
At least.
Well, we're gonna move through them. Once we get past through these, and sorry, you're right there.
No, you're good.
Once we get past these I think you're gonna see progress for sure.
Gotcha. I was just asking so that if we're making them 2 hours, then we're ending at 7:30, or we're planning to end at 8. So I guess that would be 2.5 hours.
Give us a hard stop at 8 if that works for everybody.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
We can get a lot done in there.
And it only takes, not that we don't want everyone to participate, but it does only take a quorum to actually enable you to conduct business. So if you have to miss one meeting, and as long as we have a quorum, and again, the other thing is, sometimes you see people where they start the meeting in person, for example, and then you gotta get home for the other half of the meeting, or vice versa, you start off remote, and then you take a short drive to get over here, as long as you're on camera, if you're remote, like Mr. Ayala, as long as you're on camera when you're participating, you're good.
So our
Sounds
next
good.
meeting is gonna be in 2 weeks from tonight at 5:30. And then we'll go from there. And if it's all right, I'll just move us on to item 4. Item 4 is,
Just, John,
yeah,
I just
sure.
want to make sure that we
Sorry.
have that squared. So it's every 2 weeks. Hard stop at 8, tentatively. If we have to go a little later, we may have to do that. But, and then any other add-ons as we get closer to the end, we'll modify from there, correct?
yes, sir.
Okay.
Exactly how I heard it.
Sure.
Yes.
Do you want me to go ahead and give out the dates for every 2 weeks?
Not yet. We're getting there.
Okay.
I think you can do that by email.
Okay.
So we all have it in writing, because I will lose whatever you hand me.
Okay, do that. It will make sure everybody gets the
Yeah.
notices.
So item 4 is discuss and consider approval, or no, item 5, excuse me, review and discuss city council recommendations regarding charter review. Did everybody have a chance to look at that city council discussion? Some did and some didn't.
Yes.
Okay, if it's all right, I have, we'll go through them from one by one from the start. And if that's all right, and we'll just go through.
All of the ones that were brought up, all the ones that the majority seemed to indicate they wanted to hear. Watched that meeting.
Yeah. I only wrote down the ones that the majority,
Okay, that's
uh,
okay,
where there was clear direction.
right.
And you know, when you're up there, and this is item 25 of a 35 meeting agenda, you know, so I think what ends up happening is there's enough interest to get it from them to the Charter Commission, and then they're gonna get it again anyways, in depth. They're gonna get everything we do in depth, so. So the first one that I heard and this was from the mayor, was to reduce the number of required meetings. Sam, do you want to tell us what section that is?
Yes, it's 3.09. And y'all do have copies of the charter. It's 3.09.
Page 8 of that 36-page packet.
Right, it would be page 8, yes, sir.
I'm seeing on here that item number 2 says they want a final report by May 26th.
Memorial Day.
Okay,
We can get there.
okay.
I'm sure of it. So does everybody have section 308 in front of them? Okay. So what I heard, and Jim, Mr. Vice Chair, please let me know if I'm not being accurate from what I heard, but I wrote down, reduce the number of required meetings of the city council from 22 to 20 per year. And in section 308, I think where does it? 309, sorry. Section 309, what sentence is that in? Sam, it's the first one.
Yes, sir.
22 regular meetings, yes. You know, I could really use a highlighter.
Oh, we got some. And one of the things, I know was discussed is that there's not a prohibition on having additional meetings, it's just that, you know, that's one thing that was noted during the discussion.
Yeah,
Council feels the need for a special meeting or an additional meeting, they're not prohibited. The way the charter is written.
Got the word shall there, so.
It's just a
that
few
locks
words.
them in.
yeah, I think what I heard in the discussion introduced by the mayor on this one was to remove the first meeting in January, which can sometimes be the 2nd or 3rd of January. And also the regular council meeting that occurs always on election week, sometimes election day, sometimes the day, and they have to move it to the day before or the day after. And that's a painful meeting. No, and they often will reduce the size of the agenda dramatically because, you know, 2 or 3 of their, maybe even 4 of their colleagues are, you know, at their wits' end after a long campaign. So does anybody have any thoughts on this one?
I'm not seeing where you said that it specifies it has to be held in January or something. Did I miss that?
That was just the explanation that the mayor gave in the council discussion.
About why we should reduce it, and I'm okay.
Yes.
I think it's fair, if council is finding that it's difficult to have 22 regular meetings, and they feel like they can do city business with less, I'm okay to do that, I don't see why we would have to
Yeah.
insist
That's right.
to keep it 22.
Especially
I'm okay
when-
to reduce it.
Especially when one is during an election,
Right,
that Tuesday, that's on.
Yeah, that election
Can
meeting.
we
is very-
specify that election week? Typically not to have that. Or do we, you know, I'm just saying, you know, you've got 2 options. You can
Yeah.
either go with just reducing it to 20, or we just go ahead and say, you know, this is the blackout.
why don't we reduce it and let them choose the ones that make sense to them? maybe.
Yeah. And I'll also just throw out there the council has kind of gives the council and the city staff a break in July and tries not to schedule meetings, at least the first meeting in July. It used to be both meetings so that everybody could have, flexibility to travel or summer holiday. But I know that, Sam, correct me if I'm wrong, they have been meeting at the second meeting in July.
Right, they started doing where one meeting July, one meeting in June, I think how the last couple of years anyways.
Does that work okay for the council?
It seems that it's been working for them, I have, from what I could tell.
Seems like it would give an option for vacation either June or July.
So what I've heard so far, and again, please, if I'm off base, just say so. I've heard a couple of ideas. One was to agree to allow them to reduce the meetings from 22 to 20 and allow them to schedule as they see fit. And the other one, Rob, you had brought up about, putting a
Election day is
specific
definitely
day.
One I know that
Yeah.
I've seen in the past, so
Yeah.
I mean, but I'm just trying to see what some options. are.
Yeah, yeah. What, anybody who hasn't weighed in, any thoughts on that?
Yeah.
I like it that they can do their own schedule because it can be changed yearly, so then you can focus on what's better.
I think Daniel raises. Maybe,
The what?
Daniel, maybe did you raise your hand?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see a hand.
No, that wasn't my hand. I was listening.
My bad. Well, then it sounds like we're in agreement that we'll agree to reduce it by 2 meetings and we'll agree to let them choose which 2 they will forego.
Yeah. That's okay with me. Hopefully they everybody, future council sticks to the one in November being reduced. So I get your point.
That's
Specifying that.
Just, if there's specific meetings that just, we know that are gonna be short changed anyway.
Why don't we do this? Why don't we do what you just said? And when we make the recommendation, because it was noted that the meeting, we'll just give a little context that we did discuss. We agree with you that the meetings in November and the first meeting in January could be problematic. Is that all right? Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So do you have your first direction on that one?
Yes, and there's 2 ways we can do this. So council, they'll give direction and they just kind of form this, or we can do a roll call vote on each item, and that's really what's comfortable for you all to do. Yeah, it sounds like we have kind of consensus on this item.
I'm okay with a roll call because I think we're gonna try to get 7 supports, everything, if we can.
Sure.
Uh,
So just we need a motion.
I'll tell you what, if,
Yeah.
well, I'm sorry, did I say roll call?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I meant consensus. I apologize about that, but if you want to do a roll call, we could do a roll call, or if you want to just move through these and,
And why don't you just do it like consensus and then if you have the opposing.
yeah, if there's significant conversation that,
We noted in the minutes.
Yeah.
We could still just.
we can always do a roll call. if
Just
somebody
do a
really wants to.
voice and.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think unanimous consent is the way to go on these.
Okay, thank you, right there. Daniel. So you have your direction on that first one.
Sir.
Okay. The second one was introduced by Shane Scott. And this one was looking at the requirements to become a council member. And the explanation that he gave was that he was trying to match the P and Z requirement of 5 years.
What was the
to
section
be-
again?
Yes.
3.02.
Go to.
And it would be page 5.
In my own opinion, I think the two should match, but I don't know if that means lowering it to something less than 5 or increasing the council requirement up to 5, but I think they should match.
I agree with that.
I agree, and I think they should be increased. I think that if people haven't lived here long enough, you don't really get a feel for what the city is yet. So I think that they should match, and I do feel like it's better if you've had a little bit of time here to get the vibe, to get the feel, to see what's going on. Who's moving in, who's moving out, what kind of people the same markets attract.
And is there a state reg on that somewhere? I imagine there might be.
I would have to confirm that, so I would say whatever y'all. And this will be true throughout the process, if there's something I don't know specifically, I would let you know at the next meeting if there's a prohibition or otherwise, but otherwise I'll let y'all. Assume that it's okay, but I'm not aware. Of a limitation there.
So what specifically did he want to change?
So he said try to match the P and Z to 5 years, residency to run, for basically what the same things that Amy had mentioned. I heard that in the conversation with the council, length of time. Let commission discuss. If it's more than 1 year, look at it, there were 4 in favor of this, of sending this to us. I can almost guarantee there's a prohibition against this, would be my guess. Just like with residency, I think it's very difficult, or at least it has been in the past, to put prohibitions on why someone can't run for office.
So it's
Is-
possible even the one. requirement
I think-
here may be out of sync.
I think it may be personally, but I don't know that. But well, because P and Z is appointed,
Right.
council is elected.
Body.
The council can make the requirements for their board members, but I don't believe, but we'll find out.
I think that's an important thing for us to know.
Yeah.
We may not even be able to have a discussion about, like, there's no point in having a discussion if we can't do.
Yeah, that would be my guess.
So do we all want to weigh in on that one now or just wait?
If we can wait to see, and then if it's appropriate or for the council, well, it's really the citizens that are deciding it. It's not us, it's not the council, it's the citizens in the end, because everything has to be approved by the voters. Everything that we send them, they have to approve, and then the voters.
I'm,
Let me just say too, look so forward to what you find out legally. If you have any. But I also think, depending on what you come back and tell us legally, there may be a good discussion to be had about how then is there anything we can do to help? You know, are there any parameters we can put around it? You know, what kind of, I don't know, parameters can we put around it? But I guess the first step is what we can tell us legally if we have any.
so here's what I'm looking at, and this is a quick look at the election code, but must have resided continuously in the state for 12 months and in the territory from which the office is elected for 6 months immediately preceding the following day, right?
Wow, so it's only 6.
But it's, what that is saying under state law, it's 6 months, and I guess the question I have to confirm is whether a home rule charter can modify that. Because as it is, our charter right now says 1 year, right? So I don't know, I'm not reading that as prohibition on adding length of service, that's establishing a minimum.
See, some
Under state
people
law.
would move in with election law. Some people say they lived in New Braunfels, but they moved to San Marcos just so they could run for election. What that's saying is they would have had to have been here for 6 months. You can't move in just a month or two just to run for office, because we had this happen. And the person had to have been living here for 6 months with the residents in that, you know, district, whatever, in order to run. So I don't know if that necessarily applies to, that was just addressing people moving in and want to live there for a month or two and then run for
We'll
office.
run for city office or county office or state
Both.
office.
Right, this provision is relating to whether both local or other elected offices. The election code. So I think the issue there is, and again, our current charter has 1 year, right? And this is talking about 6 months. So I think a
can
home
you-
rules municipality may have some authority.
Will you take a look at that over the next couple of
Yes,
days?
sir, and I'll send y'all
Send us an
I'll
email.
send y'all an email with that.
Kind of corollary to that, though, is enforcement of that is up to the clerk's office to validate that. How do you, yes, you attest that I've been here for that amount of time, but then, you know, who's gonna follow up with that?
Residency is a real tricky thing to check.
Real
and
tricky.
Courts they don't like to step into that, and they almost always uphold the residency of the person. It depends, but I think the key there is also you have to fill out your campaign finance forms and all that, and so it actually is with the Ethics Commission at the state level as well.
What
Yeah, and
about
if you're,
folks who own property in, say, another city and in the city of San Marcos, but claim that they have residents, that they've lived in the one in San Marcos? How do we go about refuting that or verifying that?
I'm gonna just jump in on that one because we all remember principal physical residence was the best legal language, and you'll see it at the bottom of 302, section A2. Because we had an elected official, a mayor, who principal physical residence was outside of the city limits. And he ran for office and won with a PO box. And so we spent years trying to define what residency was after that. You'll remember all those discussions, and we were just kept bumping up against the state requirements and stuff. And it was a lot of, where do you get your mail? Where's your driver's license say? Where do you hang your hat? I mean, at the end of the night kind of thing. But it's fuzzy. So that's why I'm hoping we can get a more, legal explanation, and then we can just come back to this one.
I'll send y'all an email on
Yeah.
it,
Okay.
just to confirm.
And then we'll put this one at the top of our list next meeting.
I tend to
yeah.
be- I tend to be, let the voters decide.
Yeah.
And a lot of times on these kind of things.
Sure.
You know, and because you get, I've seen us try to get into this argument before. You're
Yes.
right, this is what I'm referring back to, is I remember these times.
Yeah.
And it's just being able, you just kind of have to let this go, and that the voters are gonna have to decide.
Yes. And there was a charter review commission that actually recommended to raise the voting age.
Ooh.
That was an approved proposal, and that drew a lot of people to City Hall. And so
How long ago was that?
that was like 2005 or 6,
Yeah.
right when we switched the elections to May, from May to,
And you're.
November.
We have a lot of. Came out for that.
yeah. Chris Jones, it was the Chris Jones era,
That was it.
and it didn't make it.
See how that could ever.
Right.
that
We had a
would
lot of people
state or
saying, I'm
federal.
in the military and I'm 19.
It's gotta be federal. Like, come on now. Yeah, that's.
Which, for better or worse, I always use as like on this board that's the kind of stuff I hope we just stay away, that it's just too out there. But okay, so we will come back to the term, length of residency and other potential things that we can talk about as far as that goes.
You know what? I just come across something. So, y'all are continuing the discussion. So I'm looking at, something from the Texas Municipal League. And what it does say, it refers to this section I just read, that there's 6-month residency under the state law. And then it says a home rule city may provide for a different residence requirement in its charter, provided that the minimum length of residence in the state or city limits may not exceed more than 12 months. So I think that
Sure.
that's where we're at with the 1 year, that seems to be consistent with what I'm reading here. We have a no more than 12-month residency requirement.
Okay.
That seems
And so
consistent
we can't go more. than 12
I don't think so.
Yeah.
based on what I'm reading.
Hate to settle
I
that.
hate to give any final opinions based on a
Will
ridiculous
you-
cell phone, but I think.
Right, I was gonna
I
say.
think you're gonna have your hands tied on
Well,
that
we'll
one.
give you
Mike.
time to go ahead and
But
verify
I'm,
that.
yes, sir.
You can work on that tomorrow
But I'm pretty sure that makes sense with our charter as it is.
on the desktop. Okay, so I'll move us along to the next one, was a recommendation by Councilmember Alyssa Garza, single member districts. And this is a big one. And by the way, it was one that we talked about at length at the last charter process. There, some council members said they were not sure if, the mayor mentioned she was not in favor. Anyway, so there was discussion and it was fairly split. I don't know what numbers it was, but it did garner for discussion with us. So,
What's the specific section?
Yeah, there it is, 3.01. That would be page 4.
Well, I can tell you my knee-jerk response is no, and here's why. I know that over the years, I've tried to recruit people to run for council. It's damn hard. And I think it could probably create a problem potentially in some districts where you just can't find somebody. There's that, and also in a city the size of San Marcos. I don't think it's healthy to put one district against another, and I could see how votes could conceivably work in such a way where one district, whatever, usually winds up with the short end of the stick. So I just don't think we're a bigger city, it would make sense, but city our size, to me, that's just my initial knee-jerk response.
anybody else have thoughts?
Will we discuss it later, or is this just like a
First blush, maybe?
first take? Well, I understand what you're saying, and that makes sense to me. I guess I'm up for a bigger discussion about pros and cons out
Yeah.
of single member districts and at large. I don't know.
I'd
Yeah.
prefer to come back to it if we could as well. I'd like to hear some other opinions.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely, I think, gonna have to flesh this one out. As it said, it came up for lengthy discussions at the last review process.
And
Since,
what did they decide?
well, they decided, but since it is, but before I get into that, since it is council directed, it's one of their priorities and we're kind of starting with their priorities, so we don't have to make any quick decisions on this. I don't think it's possible because like you say, there's so much to it. And that was kind of the conversation at the last commission, not to color our conversations in any manner, but there were so many unanswered questions, like, how many districts would there be and where would they be and how big would they be? And what we had one commissioner who had the benefit of serving as an assistant city manager in a city that did go from at-large voting to single-member districts. And so he had some experience. And so we asked him, well, could you get us what did it look like on paper? Like, what did the agenda item look like? And it was 10 pages long. And because it's a very legal, thorough, legally vetted, it has to go through a firm has to come in and do this for you. We don't have the expertise. We probably don't have the time to do something like that. Probably don't want to do something like that.
I guess information would have to be provided to the firm on what your criteria, what are the criteria to draw the line.
It's complicated. You get demographers, you
Yes.
have to get,
There's legal.
legal experts who
Yeah,
are
legal
familiar with the voting.
The Voting
laws,
Rights Act.
Federal Voting Rights Act, because, you have to ensure fair representation, no gerrymandering and all, and so it's a process, but
So just to finish that explanation to answer your question, at the end, when we thoroughly finished, the recommendation wasn't for or against, but it's clearly said, if the council is interested in single member districts, please, prior to the next charter review commission, have some thorough discussions and flesh out some things so that the commissioners can make an educated decision. And to my knowledge, they have not. And in fact, I think the mayor mentioned in the meeting, we just haven't done it. And it's been 4 years. And to the day we met. And, I was hoping that they would have done that at least so that when we got together, we could see, okay, here's some preliminary, here's how long it takes, here's how much it costs to produce the documents, here's what other cities, what their what results they got out of it.
So how do we want to proceed?
Well, let's hear from everybody on it. And
To me, we don't really have enough information to even have an intelligent discussion about it, because we're asking all the right questions, but the answers are not there. And so it's council, like if, and I believe what you're saying, if council hasn't spent time or energy or money on it, I don't think we can even make an educated.
Just be her opinion.
Right, it would be our opinion, and I'm open to a discussion, and I'm open to going either way. I don't know which way I go because I don't have the information to make an intelligent decision. So I'm just saying, I think that should be our response to city council. It's like, we were open to it, but we don't feel like we have enough information to even have an intelligent discussion.
I just don't think it would be good for San Marcos. I think we would minimize like the candidates that you would have or people that, you might not really have anyone in that district that would want to run. So then what do? You might not be getting the best candidate. That's the thing that bothers me about all this. I just don't know how that would look. So council we just need more information to see, how would this look? Where would lines be drawn, to just kind of see where do you even go from here? Like, we don't know.
And why do some districts go that route? And is it better? Like you said, how did that work out for you?
A bigger
know,
city,
Right.
I can see that in like a Dallas and an Austin because they're considerably larger. So you kind of need someone there representing you and your issues. Rather than, I think in Austin, it would just be kind of hard to have all these people just running at large. I think districts in Austin, Dallas, I think even San Antonio, they're just much larger than we are, like Houston. I can't even see us on that scale
Yeah,
to even try to do that.
I would agree. But I would also say that I'd like to see what are the sizes of other cities that have gone the single member district, right? Like, because we're comparing us to Austin, we're comparing us to Houston, Dallas. There's got to be smaller cities that have gone single member, right? So we need to find what the requirements were at the time. It's a fair ask.
Yeah. What I was gonna ask, Sam, is can you look at what Kyle has in place? Because yes, they're a little smaller. They've got that hybrid of 2 at-large districts and 4 single-member districts. And that's, in the past, I have been, nah, I don't want to have single-member districts. I've switched. I'm now looking at when we've got 80,000 people, and I look at this last election. And I look at how difficult it is for a candidate to go and to cover all of these areas and to cover all of the apartment complexes, all of these different areas. It makes it much more difficult for a smaller, less, someone that doesn't have the money, basically to run these campaigns across 85,000 people. Now it makes it a lot more difficult. That's not to say that I am, oh yeah, we gotta go single district. This is a time that I'm switching my gears a little bit. And I'd like to know, how that's working for Kyle. That's at least one model of someone here locally.
I don't mind if it's the will of the board to do some research on some of the surrounding cities. And I'd say, comparable, not obviously San Antonio and us, but, more comparable size cities. I'm happy to do that if that's helpful.
Yeah, I think it would be. Buda has it, I know, as I mentioned, and a lot of, Daniel, a lot of smaller cities have it, and I've had the opportunity to talk to some of their elected officials and kind of how it goes over the years, and I certainly want to keep an open mind as well on the issue.
Yeah.
One issue, I think.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Daniel.
I just wanted to add that I know we talked earlier about how difficult it is and the process that goes into it, right? But I also feel that even with difficulty, that doesn't mean it shouldn't be allowed to be considered, right? Like, difficulty should not be the reason that we don't consider something or not, right? We have an important charge, and difficulty is kind of like, I get it, but we got to do it.
Very good.
I do like the fact that it's hard to run for office, especially in San Marcos, and there's so many minor, small micro constituencies that you have to hear from and listen to, and but it does test you for sure, and it does, if you win, you've earned it 100%. You are a lot lighter because of the nerves, and you lose a lot of weight, and you lose a lot of friends in the process. But no, it's
Calf muscles are a lot stronger.
yeah. And so I'll keep an open mind as well. Maybe you could do a little research for us. But I also share a concern with, I guess, and I don't have 100% anecdotal evidence, or I have mostly anecdotal evidence, but I think we can say this with a bit of accuracy, is that if you have, say 10,000 resident districts, I'm just throwing out a number there, and a mayor at large and a council member or 2 at large, whatever. But the districts are 10,000. My biggest concern always was, is someone going to get elected? We know the turnout here. It's on year elections, presidential elections, our biggest turnout, 40%. Bit less for down ballot races, but still the highest turnout is, our second highest turnouts are in the gubernatorial races, probably 25-35%. And then our lowest turnout are on the odd year elections, 10%. And if you're getting 10% of 10% and you have 1,000 people vote, that means 501 people elect a council member. And that concerns me, because that's such a small sliver of of the whole community. And most of the same issues that are affecting your neighborhood or affecting his neighborhood or affecting my neighborhood. You know, we have a lot of similarities still. So that's my initial blush. But yeah, I think if I'm hearing correctly, we're asking for a bit more information. Just like most of these issues aren't gonna get decided in the first run, although the first one, we started out really good.
Right.
So we'll just keep
Did
going.
some research on surrounding communities
Yeah.
and a little more information on what a process might look like that's relevant.
So could you provide, if possible, when you're doing your research on that, could you provide perhaps, I think it would be helpful, if it's not, let me know. Like how many people are voting in each district? Like what's the turnout level? Compared to a number of, it's not hard to find this information through any city clerk. You know, what is if Kyle has 5 districts,
What the percentages in each.
what was the percentage turnout typically and what, you know, and how big are their districts?
Another piece of information they want is overall population of these different cities, and then also maybe overall geographic area.
Yeah, the size.
Where.
I think San Marcos it was 32 or 34 square miles when I left. I don't know what it is. 41 now.
I was briefly at the city of Seguin, and actually they had single member districts, but
And then Seguin, all of their elected offices are up the same year.
Wow.
All 7 people are voted on at the same time. Wow, that may get turnout, and we are talking about terms of office in part of our conversation. So I'm going to mark this one as incomplete. We're return to that. The next one that I heard was that was Ms. Garza. The next one was from Amanda. It's Amanda, right? Rodriguez? Yeah. Mentioned extending date to repeal ordinances from 30 to 60 or 90 days.
that's correct. And
What's the section?
it's section 6.02, 16. 6.02, power of referendum. And that has to do with
Go ahead.
the chair mentions the ability for the voters to say, you know, y'all enacted an ordinance, but we don't like it. We want to repeal it. And there's a period in there, 30 days, for you to get a petition together, get 10% of the voters to sign it. And I think the suggestion was 60 days, or I guess there was some discussion about 90.
60.
So
Just a different, more days. And so this is for, if I understand correctly, this is council has an agenda item, it passes, there's a majority of council members that pass it. And it could be an any ordinance.
Yep.
And
Well, and it's an ordinance that is subject to referendum, but yes,
so is there different types of ordinances that are subject to referendum, that some that aren't?
that's an interesting question, because what wouldn't be subject to referendum? I mean, I think any ordinance about is, unless it's something that is absolutely mandated, for example, by the state or something. But generally speaking, you know, ordinances, most of our ordinances are, you know, setting up new requirements, say park regulations or speed limits or anything of that nature. So any of those would be subject to.
Sam, does the ordinance go into effect after this period expires? Or it
No,
goes into effect and then you can appeal it?
They go into effect immediately,
Okay.
and then you would be repealing if the voters, you know, the majority of votes approved
How
that.
often do we have people do this within the 30-day period currently allowed?
Well, actually, since I've been here, I've never seen
Yeah.
this happen. It's never come up. We've had other voter initiated items, like we had the marijuana ordinance a couple of years back. But that was to
Fluoride.
adopt an ordinance. We had the fluoride, but this is repealing. I've never seen it done.
And it was never done in 15 years that I was there, so maybe it was the 30-day thing or, but it really,
Logistically, I just can't see doing it
no,
in 30 days.
it would be
There's no
impossible.
way. And I can see why she would want that for 90 days because she tends to be more for that, being able to give people more options to do that. It is still, no matter what, that is still a high, that's a high hill to climb. This knowing from being involved in past,
Referendums.
signature, ballot signature items.
No, and I'm
Is-
okay to extend it, I don't see any harm in doing that, if you wanna give them more legal time, that's okay with me, it sounds like they're not picking up on it, but not because maybe it's 30 days, but if they said maybe it is because it's 30 days, I'm okay, give them more time. I mean,
Yeah,
that's-
is there a downside to extending it? I can't think.
But it could have been that maybe someone had an issue with something, but by the time you realize you have an issue, 30 days is gone. And then you don't have any other recourse. And I'm thinking that maybe there has been an issue that no one's just seen it happen
Right.
because they've been out of time. I don't have a problem extending it, but
Daniel?
Are we thinking extending by, because we had it at 30 days, right? Are we thinking 90 days seems like a fair amount of time?
Well, it says
60 or
60 days.
90.
It says 60 days on the paper. So what, 90 days is possible?
They were talking 60 or 90. I don't think they really came up with it.
Oh,
I'm okay with that.
I think 60 days should be
60.
sufficient. I don't know. I'm open to either one.
Yeah, 60 or 90, I think, or either one.
I tend to lean 90 only because most of the times when you have something that is time sensitive and it gives you a certain time limit for you to do something, 3 months is the usual amount.
Okay, I'm hearing-
I can agree with that.
That's fair to the citizen.
I think it, yes, give people an opportunity if you have an issue.
Because it's still not, it's not easy. You know, we're not saying it's like.
no, I have my doubts that it's gonna get done in 90 days either. That's such getting the signatures, then they have to be approved, certified and
And that says that the
Is
county
there-
clerk has to have it
city
approved,
clerk.
or the city clerk,
City
sorry.
clerk, yeah. Has to have it approved under state law requirements and our charter requirements.
Counting, verifying the
Yeah.
signatures and things.
But wouldn't that just be if you had already turned it in? Then they could still work through the process. It would just be a matter of getting it turned in within that time frame. And then
I
I
would
thought
think.
everything else came after that.
Yeah,
As
that's,
long as you met the deadline to turn it in, then they could still
That's
go in
correct.
and
It's
verify
the filing
everything.
has to be done within that time period. Then the
Yeah.
city clerk has her own time period to count.
Right.
So, or and verify signatures and so.
is
Yeah, 'cause
there a
it does file.
requirement? I'm sorry, Daniel, is there a requirement for signatures to be recent? Like, don't you have to turn in signatures that are no more than 30 days old? I think there was something along those lines.
Well, they have to be. First of all, they have to be registered voters. And so, yeah, you gotta be able to verify that at the time they. They're voters, and it can't be, yes, there is a time period, you can't have a signature from 2 years ago. For example, well, we started 2 years ago, but I'd have to sift through this to find that exact.
You can have one more than 30 days old. Like, and less than, I mean, is there a limit?
Well, at that point, it's within that window, so yeah, they're gonna be 60 days, so they're all gonna be within that 60-day period. So, but at the time, they do have to be registered voters, right? Qualified voters.
So this is saying 10% of the qualified voters. We're talking somewhere about 50,000 qualified voters. City, I think, for the last election, give or take, so you've got to get 5,000 signatures within 90 days.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's where I'm agreeing with you, John. It's a high hurdle, but at least we're making that a little bit more palatable. Okay.
So, okay, I have heard 6 people say 90 days. And I'm just gonna briefly play devil's advocate. Because it's not that, I don't think that's gonna happen that often, and so I don't wanna really belabor the issue, but you can start a referendum anytime. You can start it after 30 days to repeal something, can't you?
Well,
Now,
on this,
to
well, that's different.
require an election?
So, yes, there's a separate, this is to repeal an ordinance, right?
Right.
But it's interesting, you can always submit to the voters a proposed ordinance. And so going to your point, in theory, that proposed ordinance could basically invalidate an existing ordinance, right?
No,
So
my point is that council passes something and 6 months later, citizens get riled up, they get enough signatures, a petition, it goes to the city council, and then the city council, to my recollection, if it hasn't changed, has to either A, repeal, or B, place it on a ballot if there were certified signatures. So we have a process for repeal of ordinances already. My only fear on this is we pass an ordinance and everybody is counting days. I mean, does the staff implement the ordinance? Do we take action on the ordinance? By the time an ordinance is passed, council's had it for months. I mean, there's first reading, second reading, there's pre-discussion. Sometimes it goes to the P and Z already, so it's been in the system for a number of meetings and months already. And so my only concern is the work product, I guess. It's a business meeting. You have to accomplish things, yes or no. And so that's all I'll say on it. But
And given that there already is a procedure that you do it, sounds like this is sort of an extra thing that tag you along.
well, I don't know, this is specifically just about repealing an ordinance. But then we have other provisions that allow the voters at any time to circulate that petition. And so,
and force the council to take action.
right,
The
so,
difference is that one has to go on the ballot. This does not have to go on the ballot here.
Does the non-30-day one does not have to go on the ballot. The council has the option to repeal the ordinance
Okay.
or place it on a ballot.
Did they
Okay.
do that with marijuana? Some wanted to.
We did it with fluoride.
that's right.
We had an ordinance that required fluoride to be put in the water.
Yeah.
There was certified signatures. It came to the council. The decision was to place it on a ballot referendum rather than the council make the decision. But the decision was made, the process was carried out. And I'm fine. I don't mean to belabor this. I'm fine with changing it to 90 days, but just throwing that out there.
But it's good to know that there's also another process that maybe
Yeah.
Amanda wasn't aware of.
And that's very possible.
And I should point out too, because I just had time to think about it, you're talking about, well, what kinds of ordinance would be subject to that? I would say that any kinds of ordinances that affect property rights and based on applications, that would be zoning, primarily zoning related matters, where once that's adopted, I don't see how voters
I don't see how
can
you-
take that away from the applicant, because they're making investment-based decisions based on that approval, right? And their application's been approved. So once that happens, they're locked in, right? So I just, there's gonna
Yeah,
be
because-
situations, this will not apply to every single type of ordinance.
If it goes into, say, a zoning case, if it goes into effect as soon as this passed, and the developer then goes out, commits to
Right.
spending $2 million.
Building the project.
Weeks later.
No, 90 days later, there's a petition turned in.
Yeah, but we can't do that.
So I'm just saying, there may be ordinances that this would not apply to, but that might be an example.
Well, that's gonna be a challenge to convince folks, because I mean, let's face it, our biggest fights typically are zoning fights, and if that gets a lot of folks usually riled up, and I would think that if there's 90 days, I would think there needs to be some specificity when we relay our recommendation back to council on which ordinances this could and could not apply to.
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Give them,
Say that wouldn't be fair.
No, and so as of now, I'm still hearing 6 suggested 90-day. Is that the same?
To be honest, it really doesn't matter to me.
Okay,
Whatever the group.
okay. Daniel, you're good? Okay. All right, so I'm gonna move on. So we've beat that horse pretty well.
So that was 60, no,
90 days, yeah, that's what I heard. That's what I heard. Okay, moving on, the next one that I heard was, this one was I think this one was shot down. There was a discussion about changing bar hours. The mayor brought up that this is not in the charter, it's an ordinance. Is
that's
that,
correct.
would you agree with that?
Yes, the bar hours are set up by ordinance.
Okay.
And that was following the process under state law, which allows cities to establish those by ordinance.
By ordinance, okay. Okay, so then moving on was one from Lorenzo, which was language for petitions. Language for petitions were somehow different from, and then I couldn't understand what he was saying there.
I had a little difficulty understanding exactly what elements they were trying to make consistent, but there's this idea of making petition requirements similar. So
What section would that be?
that'd be 6.02, 6.03.
Okay. Are they different? I guess I'm not sure which petitions he's referring to.
And which parts are inconsistent because, for example, for petitions, that's what you're talking about previously, is that you can propose an ordinance. Voters can, after you get a petition, and that requires you to actually outline the requirements, the elements of the ordinance. So somebody has to draft that so it can be submitted, so we know what we're voting on versus the referendum. All you have to do is say, we want to repeal this ordinance, right? So I would probably have to go back and look at I did look at the video and I don't recall.
Maybe you could ask him.
Discern, yeah, specifically what the concern was.
If it is, there is a conversation, I think, to be had about petitions and the language of petitions. Because in the past, some of them were just, like, I know you have to, if you're proposing an ordinance, you have to actually state the ordinance, and the ordinance has to be enforced, correctly written, so that when someone's signing the petition, they know exactly what they're getting by signing it. So there are requirements, and if Jamie Case or
And it does.
was
get
here,
tricky.
she would
So
know
for
that.
the example, the marijuana ordinance, I think, wrote, a lawyer assisted with that because it had the necessary elements that typical ordinances have, talking about repeal of inconsistent provisions, effective date, it had a descriptive caption. So it kind of met the normal requirements. So some groups are going to submit an ordinance that is just simply unenforceable or unintelligible, right? So right now, the way it's written, it does require some degree of sophistication to submit that ordinance.
Was
So
the
can you reach out to, yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
question for for what the councilman was saying, was he talking about or that you might remember from what you heard, the difference between a petition for an ordinance to be passed as opposed to a petition, which is a referendum? Is that what it was? It was a difference in the timing of when things needed to be called for in an election? Because from what I'm reading here, like we have on a initiative petition, call for an election, which is at least 62 days after the date on which the council acts. But then on this one here, which is an authorized referendum petition, that one is a 45 days from the day of which the council acts. So maybe he was talking about the difference in timing.
He very well may have.
I'll have to rewatch the minutes on that.
It might be worthwhile to speak with him directly if you can, and maybe get a little bit more clarity. But that's a good point. What is it? Initiative petition and
Yeah, one is the
Referendum.
initiated.
voter referendum,
Yep.
voter referendum.
Authorized referendum petition versus an authorized initiative petition.
Gotcha. Good catch.
Mhm.
Are those, Mr. Gary, are those, the initiatives and referendums in the state of Texas? Is there any state law that applies to the language,
I think it's gonna be the home rule.
home rule charters?
Yeah.
Like, we can't do anything we want. Surely it has to be pretty buttoned down.
But I think within this realm, the home rule charter gives us that flexibility to treat them differently. So
And you'll reach out to council member
absolutely.
and get back to us on
And-
that.
I think one reason the 62 days, it may have come about just, because the calendars and when elections are called and enabling the city clerk to get signatures verified and then get it on ballot in time, probably 11. Also, I think that makes sense with the history on the right to 62
Okay.
days.
Is that all right with the commissioners to get some clarification from him and follow back? So this one's a TBD for right now. We have about 6 minutes to a short 5-minute break, if everybody can make that. So I'm gonna just move us, I think we have time for one more. That would be another Shane suggestion. Oh gosh, this is a long one. Okay. This, yeah, maybe we'll, can I see if I just have a short one here real quick?
I'd say.
I do. Yeah, I have the one from Matthew, the Zoom requirements, attendance, meeting attendance requirements by electronic device. He has options and standardize the rules. And possibly discuss as an ordinance. That's what the mayor has.
If they didn't get the 4 votes for that.
Oh, okay.
But we did raise the discussion.
Yeah, so I have possibly discussed as an ordinance is how they left it. So would that one
That's
likely
correct.
be an ordinance?
It was, the suggestion was that's the kind of thing that's in the ordinance in chapter 2 that governs meetings already. We have a lot of procedures and that could be done by ordinance. So
Okay.
I think the conclusion.
I got a short one because we have P and Z experts here. This one was a suggestion for us to discuss removal of final authority on plats.
Yeah, that, I could have swore we already did that, because we had one, apparently when it comes to P and Z, a plat.
Could you explain what a plat is? please?
Yes, plat is, they map out on a piece of paper, surveyed exactly what the layout of that particular property is. And, it used to come to us and we were told the only reason we could reject it is if there was some technical issue in it that was not up to par, but we're not experts in that, so yeah, pass it. We had one commissioner at one point who didn't like the plan, didn't like the concept and voted no. And that's, I was chair at the time, I met with city staff and said, no, we're not supposed to be doing that, so please take that authority away from us. So we would get a presentation of a plat, and that's how it is now, but we don't vote on plats anymore. We used to. So I'm not even sure why that's there. I mean, we can't, you have to be an expert on what's on the plat to have a
There's-
legitimate complaint.
There is one other thing that's come up in fairly recent legislative session is that planning decisions should all be appealable to the city council, or at least planning decisions. So there is already under state law, I think people have the right to appeal a decision to the city
But
council.
we're not approving them right now.
Right, because the code was changed based on, again, recent state law that did allow administrative approval of plats, so.
And what does administrative approval mean? Does that mean that the chair of the board just signs it? That it was approved?
It's right, the staff makes that
Staff
determination.
or the-
Yes, sir,
or the chair?
They gotta meet all the criteria. And I don't know if the chairperson is still signing
Up
when,
to a recent one.
But the staff was-
Yeah, they still did, and they, at the beginning of the meeting, they had a big pile of it, and just sign it.
but the staff is making the determination. And
Okay.
again, this is because of changes in state law where if you paid any attention, the city's authority generally in the development realm has been curtailed significantly by the legislature. And one of these is platting. Now we have a shot clock. Plats have to be approved, or if they're not, they're deemed approved.
Yeah, I
And-
know there was some timing issue in taking us out of the process of changing the date, so.
We had one not that long ago and it was, they had already done whatever
Yeah,
because of a time constraint or something, right?
I don't think P and Z needs to be looking at this, right? You don't have the expertise to
And
evaluate.
we don't now.
Yeah.
So,
And there is an appellate process that does allow appeals to go to council if there is an issue with the plat. But
Okay,
we've never seen that happen.
So what do we say then about number 8? Is that not even? Review, I mean, isn't
Is
that
it-
going to look?
there
What
was,
section, what's this specific word?
7.02?
7.02.
Let's see.
Let me start.
is there a subsection?
It's subsection 2. It's under, I'm sorry, it's
On page 20?
7.022 would be page 20. At the very top. Number 2, review and be the final approval authority for the subdivision and platting plan within the city and CTJ. The council or the commission may expressly delegate authority to approve certain minor subdivision plats to the director of planning and development services department in accordance with provisions of state law.
And that's what we're doing now.
Yep.
So what would we change in?
Well, I think that the original suggestion from the council member was to remove like the first sentence, the final approval authority, and bring it to council, but then they had a fairly lengthy council discussion. And it kind of led to where we are right now that the platting is more procedural and it has a deadline and a shot clock and it just, if that checks all the boxes, it's approved. And so it's now to the point where it's being done by authority of the direct planning staff. So
And for those who aren't as familiar with platting, zoning is considered kind of a legislative act, and when it's something is a legislative act, there's wide discretion. And what I always used to tell when I was doing P and Z is, I said, you know what? You can deny the zoning and it would meet the criteria and be legal on the same case, and you could approve the zoning on that same case, and that would be legal too, because in legislative acts, courts are saying, hey, we're gonna let the legislature decide what's appropriate for their community. So generally zoning is broad, but platting is called quasi judicial, and that means it has very narrow criteria, and that is, you may not like the development or whatever, but if it checks the boxes, you know, shows the roadways, it shows that there's gonna be water to the site,
Clearance and all this,
you have to approve it. It's almost a ministerial act to approve it.
So we had a presentation on this.
Yeah.
That said that planning would then
Oh,
be,
it's in our training, yeah.
the planning would then be doing
Deny
it.
it checks all the boxes.
Exactly.
Check the item, it checks all the boxes, and we don't have the knowledge or expertise or training
Right.
to say whether or not the boxes were appropriately checked, so.
Okay.
Right, because plating is, again, it's about, is there water? Are you taking care of the drainage? Is there gonna be detention ponds, you know, all these things? Roadways, streets, utilities.
Okay.
The zoning is different.
So we're gonna leave this one go. There's nothing for us to change because it has to be there. We have to do it as a city function. There is a part 2 to this recommendation, which we will pick up after the break, if that's all right. So it's 7:02. Can we be back at 7:07, please? Just 5 minutes for a restroom break.
I got 6:58 on mine. Who's
That's
ahead?
all I saw was 8.
I think so.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Daniel was asking a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I got 6:58 on my time. Who's ahead or who's behind?
Oh, our clock is fast here. Sorry.
Okay, no worries.
Yeah, so you get an extra minute. I gotta stand up. Oh,
I'm gonna stop recording now.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Wait,
I'm gonna bring snacks.
Okay, now we're good.
okay, so we ended with what is listed as item 7 for the appeal, or item 8, I guess, for the appeals plating decisions. I'm sorry, I wasn't going off this. I was just going off the notes that I took. But there was a second part of that conversation that they had that they asked us to look at, and that was the possibility to revoke or the CUP conditional use permits.
Oh, we shouldn't have that state law trumps this, doesn't it? So. Oh, remember the one about the alcohol CUPs being final deciders? We can't be the final decider.
Well, that's something different. This is,
Oh,
I'm not sure what you're talking about, state law, because state law doesn't specifically talk about CUPs.
no, but it does say everything can be appealable to council.
Well,
I thought it was final from the P and Z CUP.
Well, yeah, that's what it says. Well, we've had,
Cause some
You
people.
mean-
but this is the revocation process. This is not approval of permits, so
Right.
it's a little bit different.
but still, doesn't the new state law say council has final,
I think-
final authority? So we would have
It's,
final authority on even revocation, is that right?
it's likely that there would be a right of appeal to council on North Planning and Zoning Commission decisions under current state law.
Does everybody know what a CUP is?
Yes.
A CUP conditional. Can you just give a,
We probably should, yeah, that's a good point, because what San Marcos has, and not every city has this, but San Marcos has a process for conditional use permits, and that's actually zoning. It's land use related. A lot of people sometimes forget that. It's about land use and what is an appropriate use at a particular location. So maybe a bar is appropriate in a commercial area, but is it appropriate where it backs up to the back fence of a, you know, residence or an apartment complex, for example?
Or a school.
Or, yeah, those things. And, but it's not just alcohol. CUPs. That's what we're most familiar with, but we also have conditional use permits for things such as certain types of businesses like gas stations. I think there may be some for storage facilities, warehouse, yeah. So it's not just alcohol, but the whole idea is it gives the commission to say, we think that the warehouse may be appropriate if you do A, B, and C to mitigate the adverse impacts on the surrounding area. So the conditional use permit, that's why it's called conditional, is we're gonna let you do this thing here, but only if you meet these conditions, such as you're gonna put sound barriers, you're gonna build a fence to screen it from view, you're gonna plant trees, any number of things, that whatever they think is necessary to mitigate the negative impacts on the surrounding area.
But on this element, isn't it specific to alcohol? I'm trying to look at, find it 7.2. I think it's revocation of an alcohol CUP.
It just says conditional use permits.
Oh,
And on
Yeah, I
section,
don't see the.
on section 4, that last sentence, it just says decision. I think this was the gist of their conversation.
Yes, sir.
Subsection 4 of, what is that? 702, subsection 4. Decisions of the commission to revoke or suspend conditional use permits will be final and may not be appealed to council. And I think the conversation revolved around, should it be allowed to be appealed to the council, like a lot of other things are allowed to be appealed to the council. And so that was, I think that, would you agree?
That's
yeah,
exactly right. Yes, sir.
state law says we can't do that. Anyway,
Well,
is that right or not?
State
What-
law says what? That we just-
what recent legislative changes have talked about, most planning related decisions are appealable to the governing body of the municipality.
Okay.
So that is what's happening now.
So if that's the law, then, then we'll likely have to remove this sentence.
Right, and actually, so even if, right, so even the way the charter's written, if some state law comes in and trumps the charter, it just becomes an unenforceable provision, but that's correct.
Okay,
It's
so
it's probably.
Can this one just be dropped administratively, or does it have to go to the voters?
It has to be removed.
Has to go to the voters, say we,
What is state
Because,
law?
It's a
because
change.
it's in the charter,
okay.
we can't just go change ourselves, even if it's just, and I've seen charter initiatives or ballot measures where it's basically to bring the charter to be consistent
Compliance.
with state law. You'll have an election, certain provisions are removed just for that purpose. And y'all may have done that even last go around.
Yeah.
There may have been one or two.
Absolutely, we did. And that's a very ongoing process, but you will check and determine if that's the case on this one.
Yep.
And then if so, then we won't waste a whole bunch of time talking about it. It'll have, but it will be a charter amendment.
That's correct, even if it's
Wow.
just to be
Really?
consistent.
And what happens if the voters decide they don't want to?
Well, It would be.
Stay in there and be
still
unenforceable.
Unenforceable, that's
Okay.
correct.
But there should be an explanation, hopefully, to the voters.
Yes.
on why. But I could see where some people might say, we don't want any decisions appealed, I could see that, but anyway. You'll get back to us on that.
Sir.
Okay. Any other discussion on that before? Okay, we'll wait for the final.
It should be-
But again, like Mr. Garber's pointed out, it's been this idea that the legislature is trying to rein in cities a little bit, but one of the things, and I guess you can look at it, depends how you look at it, but the idea that all decisions can be appealed to the governing body. Maybe in the legislature, it's, hey, they're the electeds, let them have the final say. One thing it does enable is it's a last ditch effort, for example, when there might be litigation directly from a planning and zoning decision. It's one last chance for the council to say, we see a situation here where there could be liability or whatever. And council can at least have that opportunity before somebody goes immediately to district court. So that's one way of looking at it.
Okay,
Is this kind of, the tantra is kind of coming up with, in my mind here recently, is that, where that was appealed? Is that?
No, that was just appealing a P and Z decision. That wasn't revocation.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't revocation or suspension.
Okay, I just was wondering if that had anything that was. This all.
No.
Okay.
That wasn't relevant.
Okay, thank you.
all right, I'm gonna move us back to item 6, which is the study and consider changing city council terms to 4 years and holding elections in odd numbered years. Lots of discussion on this on the council. And I'll throw it out there for for a short discussion. I think the discussion was making council member and mayor terms 4 years. And then that was originally what Shane had introduced. And I don't know why I can't remember his motivation for what he stated his motivation was. After that was brought out, some council members weighed in, including the mayor, saying, well, I could support 4 years, but only if they were in odd years. So off-year elections. And I have a few things to say about that one, but we'll get into that. And then there was a conversation about, they kind of split it up. Well, should the council be 4? Should the mayor be 4? And then they all be in odd years. And so there was like this 3-tiered conversation that everybody had to weigh in, but not everybody weighed in. Some council members just said, send it to them and let them flesh it out, which is what we do. So the gist of it is right now, council members are 3-year terms. The mayor's a 2-year term. The conversation started with everybody going 4 years. So if we want to start there, we can start there. And also we'll have to talk about if we think it should just be in odd years, not even years. And then we could do like Seguin where they're all up at once. We can clean house.
Clean Scary.
What are your thoughts? I think correctly isolated all 3. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, in the last charter review process, 4 years ago, we did have a conversation about lengthening the mayor's term simply because 2 years is just impossible to A, accomplish anything, B, you work for a year and then it's your election year. And it may not sound like, we know it's not the US Congress, but it is an election and people pay attention in our town. It's hard to get elected. It's hard to stay there. But so we did send them I want to say it was 5-2 or maybe 6-1 for 4 years for mayor. Well, that was quickly shot down at the council.
What was the reason?
Oh, well, I didn't agree with the reasoning, but the stated reasoning was that the first one didn't make any sense to me because they said, well, people that get elected to mayor don't want to serve 4 years. They only want to serve 2 years. And I know that's not true. I've been the mayor and nobody wants to serve 2 years.
Yeah.
So there was that. And then there was a couple of council members. I think Councilmember Gleason was like, what if I hate the mayor? And I'm like, well, I don't know, but what if the mayor hates you? But we did make the recommendation of 4 years for mayor, but we put term limits on it. And prior to 2021, there was no term limits for mayor or any council member. So in 2021, we sent them a recommendation that the mayor's term would increase from 2 years to 4 years. And that the mayor can serve 2 terms consecutively. And then we recommended that when you get out after your 8-year term, that you wait 4 years. Get back in the community, see some of the fruits of your decisions and whether they were as good as you thought they were when you made them. That was my suggestion. The commission agreed with that. That was kicked, the 4 years was disposed of for term. The term limits were begrudgingly accepted by a split council. So we now have term limits. Yeah, we do. They are 4 2-year terms for mayor. 4 terms. And then a 1-year cooling off period.
Or 2 years, actually, I think, because I'm looking at on page 5, so 301C, 3.01C. Less than,
They could jump back in.
Yeah. After 2 years.
ineligible to run again, it's the last sentence there, subsection C. Ineligible to run for mayor for a period of 2 years after serving, say, the 4th consecutive.
So that's better. I thought it was 1 and that really, I was
And
kind of
what about
shocked
for
by that.
council or?
Council is 3 3-year terms. And then the same prohibition from
So they could
jumping,
run, they could serve consecutively.
9
for
years.
9 years,
correct.
And then they have a cooling off period.
They have a cooling off period of 2 years as well.
And so none of these got put to the people, the council decided.
The term limits did, and they passed with 80%.
They what?
They passed with 80% approval, 80 plus.
So
And
that has already started, I didn't realize that.
yeah, but it didn't take effect until, so our charter work was done in 2021, in February through May. And the term limits didn't take effect until 2022 election. So if you were there for 9 years, you technically had another 9 years to go if you wanted to do that. So they started in 2022 in the elections of 2022. Am I right on
That's
that?
correct. It's right here, November 22.
So I think it's important that we take up the conversation about 4 years. And I am gonna bring up again a little longer cooling off period, just because I think that's I know from just you asked me my personal experience. It really makes a difference, it really, first off, it gets new blood in there, but second, it gives you a much different perspective, the citizens' perspective, instead of the council bubble perspective, and there is a council bubble. Everybody's nice to you. Everybody, the staff smiles at you every day. And, everybody wants some. So let's start with the 4 years.
Why was it not proposed that you would do mayor for 3 years and council for 4?
Why did they not do that the last time? The mayor just was not gonna have it. And as I say, there was a suggestion that we wouldn't have time to serve 4 years. I know that's not the case.
Because 2 years is a little.
That's the problem, is finding people to run for 2 years.
Yes.
And running for mayor is brutal, and it's different than running for council. You can get elected to a council seat, you can do it quietly, and you get scrutiny, but not a ton. It is different.
Well, yeah.
Costs a lot more money.
Your pay is skyrocketed. To me, my gut reaction, 4 years, I would support 4 years.
I think if people really want to run for mayor, their heart is in it. If you just make it for a 2-year term, it's just like a power mover, it's just like a figurehead. I'd rather have people who really want to do it and are invested in the community. They're saying, this is gonna be like this for the next 4 years.
If you're only there for 2 years, there may be a subcommittee that it alone will take 2 years to make a recommendation. That happens fairly normal, year and a half.
Hello?
Yeah, me too, 2 years.
Well, the other conversation that we had 4 years ago was because the mayor's race is always in an even year, and at 4 years would always be at the highest turnout election that we have. And we thought that was important, that if you're going to stand to run for mayor, we're going to give you 4 years, which is a fairly long time. Remember, council members have 3, so technically the council members have more security than the mayor does
Yep.
to get things done. And even if you disagree with the mayor, like anything else, there's an election in 4 years, and they only have a 2-year, they can only do that twice. It's not a forever system. But the fact that it was held and for those who don't follow the elections as much as I do, the highest turnout election is so much higher. It's like 4 to 5 times the voters. Everybody's gonna go vote for president. We know that. Not everybody's gonna get it all the way down to mayor, but the number of people that vote for mayor in that high turnout election day, a year is staggering compared to the gubernatorial year even, which is what it is now. So now it's on a gubernatorial year, then a presidential, then a gubernatorial, then a presidential, or not gubernatorial, but congressional. Sorry, congressional, and every so often gubernatorial as well. But anyway, so 4 years is I guess the starting point of our conversation. And I have heard 2 folks, 3 for 4 years. Rob, Nancy, what do y'all think?
I think 4 years might be more accessible. To everyone. Sorry.
Right.
Legislation. It does take a lot of money to run. And if you're doing it every 2 years. So, just from a financial perspective, it's more accessible to run for a 4-year term versus a 2-year.
Rob, what are your thoughts?
Not want to change anything unless I really see a strong need for it. I've already said that about the cost of running for mayor. It's somewhere in the range of $10,000-15,000 right now. Am I about right, John?
That's the low end for mayor,
That's the
yeah.
low end right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, that's at a low end. And
Just-
so if you're constantly looking to refill that coffer, and you're out there having to hustle from people for donations, does that make you more beholden to strong interest groups in the community from the financial side? That's kind of where I'm leaning on this, is that I do see putting it at that 4 years. But then if you're always on the presidential races, you're getting a lot of people involved that normally wouldn't be voting too. And I have a bias against it. It's that the folks that come out and vote in the off-year elections, I'm more for that because I feel that those are the stronger voters in the community that are more tied to the people they're actually voting for. So, yes, I'm okay with the 4 years. I just, where those 4 years fall within that, the cycle is kind of I think where I'm sticking on this.
But if they're committed voters, and I agree with what you're saying, I understand the logic and that makes
Yeah.
sense. But if they're committed voters, won't they be committed the other years as well.
Oh,
Not
sure.
just the off years.
Sure.
So I
But
feel like,
you're dealing with, again, you're dealing with having to go through all of the chatter and all of the. Yes, they're committed, they're gonna be there, but then you're also dealing with just the wild card of, hey, do we have marijuana on the ballot this time around? Okay, that, that was an off-year election, that skewed the elections for Hayes County. Okay, just by 800 to 900 votes that we had that came in, that they were voting, that we were voting for, they were there to vote for marijuana, and they just went down and voted. That's their right to do that, I'm all for that, I have, but that's where I'm kind of sticking on this a little bit, is, I'm finished.
I was just gonna say that even in some of these elections, if you go look, there's a certain thing as the undervote.
Sure,
So I've noticed even in the last election, this was the craziest thing. In this last runoff election, you had someone that actually went to vote, like got a ballot
yep,
and didn't vote for anyone. And there were 2 people on that ballot.
Yep.
And there were 4 undervotes.
Yep.
So someone actually took the time to say they voted, but they really didn't vote.
they didn't want to vote for those candidates.
It was, I couldn't figure that out, but you also have a lot of people that, when we're talking about this presidential year or congressional year, they'll go vote, but they might only be interested in that, and they really don't care what happens down ballot, so
Yeah.
most of them are undervotes anyway. So as much as you see an increase in the vote, look at that undervote as well, because it's significant. And it was significant in this last election.
What amazes me is that even in a big election year, the numbers sort out in the same way, I think, that it would if it was a small one. I mean, sometimes we see like a 65-35 split, even in a big election.
Yeah.
I mean, I know the reason for the 65-35, but apparently so does everybody else,
Yep.
even that aren't paying attention. So,
Well, and that's the point. How do we know they're not paying attention?
right, I think.
Because
some-
how do we know that just because they're lower propensity voters, that they're less informed? We don't know that.
No, we don't know.
We don't know if they're not, or if they're not as committed, or if they're longer term or shorter term. And so
But they do seem to get it.
they do get it. The numbers always show it. And that's why I think that's why the last commission group kind of felt like, well, we shouldn't be saying that less voters is better. We shouldn't be saying that we should choose who we want to vote. We should be hoping that everybody votes, right? And we know that a lot more people vote in certain years than others. And so that was kind of the thought. Now, that was just for the mayor's thing. Council members, if you go to 4, you're gonna have even year elections anyways, or I guess you could. No, you couldn't do it always in odds,
Or
could
the
you?
more votes that you can get.
Yeah,
Yeah,
know,
you
that
could do it
turnout
always in
that
odds.
you
You could
want.
do it always in odd years. And so for me, I mean, I'm not gonna be supportive of odd year elections. And so that's another question we have to talk about is, and I think I heard, and Daniel, did you want to weigh in on 4 years for mayor? Any thoughts?
I feel, based on what I heard, I would have to agree with you that I would still prefer the presidential general elections, right, to be the year that the election happens, because those low propensity voters sometimes get swept up in the excitement of it all, right? And they
Yeah.
don't necessarily during the midterm. And so I'd prefer that over the midterms. And yeah, no, I'm for I understand the 2 years is not enough to get anything done, right? Because you're right back on the campaign cycle immediately, right? You're immediately thinking of what's coming up, and it doesn't allow you to focus on the work, and that makes sense to me.
Okay, thank you. So I think I'm hearing a strong suggestion for 4 years on that. let's talk about council members for 4 years. Right now, they're 3 and they're staggered, so. 1 year, you're gonna get a off year election. Next year, next term, you're gonna get an even year election. So you're gonna have to deal with both of those types of elections. Do we want to go 4 years or leave them at, or do we want to just recommend? We're not doing any of this, but do we want to recommend? They were kind of, let them flesh it out. It sounded good. It was the first time, remember, this is in the middle of a meeting. I think it was at 10 o'clock at night and somebody's throwing out an idea. And is it good enough to get to us? They're going to talk about it ad nauseum after this and likely change what we recommend.
So they didn't have one strong opinion over it. Yeah, they were like,
Yeah.
sure, we got the discussion.
Most people weren't trying not to give an opinion on it, but more a consensus to allow us to talk about it. Because one council member brought it up, he needed 4 to get to us.
Does it
Or she
make
needed
sense to talk about this when I guess we haven't reached whether we want to proceed forward with single member districts? Because it would change things, in my opinion. If we do happen to switch to single member districts, then we have 6 seats, right? If we have, for whatever reason, they go with 4 and 2 of them are at large, then you could then change the amount of time that the at large members stay versus the single member district ones.
My guess is council will be consistent, would you say, Jim? Council terms and mayoral terms. So you're saying you're thinking, Daniel, that maybe if you went to a district system, that the district voters would, or the district council members would have a different term than the at-large council
Yeah.
members?
Yeah, unless the goal
I don't
is,
think that-
like you said earlier, to clean. I know that they're staggered currently, right? So that to not allow for there to be a complete clean house. But I
Yeah.
have heard of other cities where they do. And
Yeah.
and it's not the worst thing.
No.
But it would allow for continuity.
Yeah,
One thing about districts, the reality of being able to get those lines drawn on a map we go through that whole process by the election.
no, it would be years. It'd be years.
It'd be a long ways in the future.
And when we revisit that, we might say, if you want to put it on the voters as a referendum, fine, but, you can't implement it for 3 years or 5 years or whatever.
Takes work.
It's a long.
It's a long process. And Austin did the same. They went to 10 districts, 10 single member districts and a at-large mayor. But it took, they approved it and it took 5 or 6 years to become reality.
As fast as we're growing, and I don't know how you could draw districts and not have it be out of date by the time you're done, but.
So the appointments and things like that.
But just, if I could last us back to the council terms. Does 4 years make sense? Okay.
I'm
Okay.
comfortable saying we clean house every 4 years. I think that makes the city unstable. I mean, I'm afraid.
I understand.
I'm okay with 4 years from there. I'm okay with staying with 3 years.
I'm kind of leaning that way too, but
Same. I'm okay with staying.
okay.
I think 3 years for council members.
I couldn't help but thinking it's so much more scrutiny to run for mayor than council. And so you're kind of vetted in a different way. And you're the brunt of everything that happens is your fault and, or your success. So, I mean, I kind of feel like there's so many more demands on the mayor that I think it should be a longer term, actually. frankly.
Well, I'm gonna ask council members, what are they, I mean, I'm okay with three, if they're okay with three. You know, I don't know what they want, that's why I was asking you, because you were like, they didn't really say.
No, they didn't.
What do you guys think, you know, because
I think anybody would probably say, yeah, give me more time.
Yeah.
And again, they're asking y'all for your thoughts.
My
but
question is,
they
what's
still-
best? What's best for
The citizens.
the citizens and the council and the dynamic and the
I mean, ultimately, we're being asked to come up with suggestions on what the citizens want. I mean, for them, if this is what we recommend, whatever it might be, I would hope that the council would say, well, let.
ain't gonna
I don't
happen.
know. I know.
I know that we have-
I read high hopes last time too.
Even recently where people are saying, you know, they're talking and they're saying, you know, what happens when you get a person on council that's disruptive and then things aren't getting done, but then they have to wait 4 years to have an election to try to get things back on track. And that's why I don't think that I'm comfortable with 4 years, because then you're just kind of, we've been there. And it wasn't fun.
I would like to add to your point that I find that the council positions are the ones that are closest to the people as far as who they speak to and who is the voice of the people, right? And that the mayor is more the executive and kind of leads the vision of the council. And that I'd even be more comfortable personally, right? I'm not saying that you guys might want that, but for 2-year terms for council members, because I feel like the people should have an opportunity to be on that seat more often than the mayor.
So Daniel, just to follow up, is the gist of your last comment also that the mayor has a slightly longer term than council members, whatever those numbers may be?
Yes, yes, because I can see how that could be that the 4 and 3, right? The 4 years for the mayor, 3 for the 3 to me just seems like okay, so like in the case that she posed, that you have a disruptive city council member, you're basically just you get 3 years out of the 4 where that's the majority of the time that they were doing what they were doing, right? And then finally you get to replace that last year of the mayor, right? As opposed to you only deal with that for 2 years and then you get the other half of that mayor's time to get stuff done.
It's hard for a council to have disruptive people, then the citizens are the ones that are hurt the most because nothing's getting done. They're spending time arguing, you know, just nothing's done. And so I don't know how the years, I'm comfortable with the 4-3. I'd even consider the 2.
Well, to add on both of your points, I think when the mayor's position is up and the community goes through this long conversation and decision, it's pretty unlikely, at least it has been, I would say, that you're going to get somebody who's way outside the mainstream and disruptive and disrespectful to other people who's going to get elected to mayor. They're usually vetted to the point where it's, you know, you kind of know basically what you're gonna get.
That's mayor.
But with council members, there's a little less scrutiny, and we've seen, you know, we've seen good, bad, and indifferent, and so I like the dynamic of, I mean, I think it's best for the board or for the council, and I think it would be best for the community to have like a 4-3, 4 years for mayor and 3 years for council members.
what I was gonna say about the 2-year term, and I'm okay with the 4 for mayor and 3 for council members. I think the 2 arguments apply to the two-year term for city council.
Absolutely.
The same things that we
Absolutely.
said about mayor.
Yeah.
You're on there 1 year, and then you have to turn around and decide, am I gonna
Yeah.
spend money again, am I gonna spend time again, going out and campaigning?
Absolutely.
Yeah, because the council election isn't cheap either.
Right.
I don't have a problem with the 4-3 at all, because it's
And then
just.
my other question was,
Stability.
brought it up, John, was how often does that really, how often do you need that kind of a rally? I haven't known it to really
Yeah.
make sense.
And-
Couple times.
And it's just like you said, at 2 years, a lot of times, the person who gets elected mayor is likely to have some experience. They're likely to be known in the community. They're likely to know the process of the city and the budget and some of the other stuff. And then we've had a few that didn't, but they didn't last long. But council members, we have a pretty rich history of electing 4 council members, people that very few people know. They are introduced really at the time of the election. And when they get in to serve, there's a learning curve and it's steep for council members. And so that first year, I almost give every council member a pass because they say the dumbest things. I said the dumbest things. And then I'm sure people were like, well, I know Mayor Narvaez was pretty he agreed with that. Because you're just learning the whole thing, and it's a fire hose, the budget. My first meeting was billboard regulations. And let me tell you, if you want to special interest lobbyist group, billboards is one of them, and that is big business. And we were legislating billboards. I mean, this is a multi-billion-dollar business and big time players in it. So I didn't know a damn thing about billboards, but that was my first meeting. I had to vote. So I think you get more of that with a council member than you're going to see that with a mayor typically.
I will also
Unless
say
there's
that-
like a axe to grind-ish mayor. Yes, sir.
Right. I will also say that on the 2-year term thing, like I agree, it's a steep learning curve, right? And you have just the 2 years, but it is the same standard that we give congressmen, right? And you get that first term is the term for you to learn and do what you can, and you're a junior congressman. And then if you want to run again because you know what you're doing now, then you run again, and now you have a purpose, right? And the second time that you decide to run. So the 2-year term doesn't bother me too much because we even allow that in the federal government. I mean, the president's 4, congressmen are 2. What is it, senators? 6 or 4?
6.
Yeah. So obviously we don't have a senator type situation, right?
Right.
But yeah, just that was just my piece on that.
Okay, thank you. So, again, none of this is final, but we're making progress. So what are we hearing? For mayor and for council?
Mayor, for sure,
Yeah.
for 4.
Yeah.
I don't know about council. I like the 3 just because I think it's.
I want to stick with 3.
So, yeah, I'm gonna ask for numbers, 3. I know Daniel's a 2,
4-3.
3 for council, 3. And, yeah, 3. Okay. So I think we have pretty clear consensus for making a recommendation for council members to remain at 3 years and the mayor for a 4-year term recommendation. And we'll just have to decide when that 4-year term occurs.
Yeah, we gotta do it even on. Well, obviously with 3-year terms, it's gonna automatically be even on.
Right.
Right?
Yep, it will.
Should be in the term when it's a presidential election.
Yeah, and right now, mayoral are in the big year. And they offer.
Well, not necessarily. The mayor's every 2 years, so it's an even year. So it could be a congressional year, or it could be presidential.
Because this next one would be congressional.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then if you moved it to 4, then you would be at a presidential. And then it would stay that way.
Yeah, and I'm not sure.
This would be on the ballot this November, correct?
Yes.
So that would go into effect then, after
The next
that.
election.
Whenever we suggest or whatever council
Right.
agrees to. It
And
doesn't have,
Y'all did that the last time.
Yeah.
You put in dates, for example, when does this new rule apply? And on this one, it says a person elected as mayor at the regular election held in November 2024 or any election thereafter shall be ineligible to run. So it's sort of like,
we could
Yeah,
say
it's a delayed start.
2028.
That's what I was
You
wondering.
know, you could say, you could say 2026 and the next person who runs for mayor and wins in 2026 will serve to 2030. In which case, if it's our current mayor, it would be over the term limited time that she had, but whatever. Or you could say it all just starts in 2028.
So I guess the decision is if we agree that 4-year for mayor is the way to go, we then decide, do we want it in a presidential year or a congressional year? Right? Or
The consensus was that you want more people to come out to vote, so I think it would need to be in the 2028 so that we could have.
I like the highest turnout for the top job. I just
I
think,
do too.
I think it's, I think you should be vetted by
That's
more people.
critical.
And, that's my own opinion. That's my-
you did say that council may not want to do what we're suggesting.
Right. I'm guessing they're not going to.
What do you anticipate their reasoning would be to not do it on presidential year? If they agree to the 4-year.
Well, I heard the same thing, in the conversation. Well, off-year voters are better voters, essentially is what I heard. And I just disagree with that. They're paying more attention. But you said it. We see split of, a 60-40 race or a 55-45, and it's that way whether it's in an even presidential year or not. And so, yeah, it's gonna be hard to convince me to put them in odd years. Yeah. For a council member, I get it. Because you can have a council member when there's literally nothing else on the ballot except maybe charter amendments for the state,
That's it.
which no one really pays attention
They
to.
just don't go.
No one's excited for that one.
Those are the times you want to run for council. It's a lot cheaper.
Well, yeah,
But I'd rather see more people participate. in
So
the
what
process.
what would the,
disagree? I'm just,
Yeah,
it's just
but-
a reality. Yeah.
the argument against this would be the voters aren't as informed?
that's what I heard, yeah. That's kind of what was suggested.
Just by.
No, I think I'm kind of the odd one out on that one. So I'm more for having it on the congressional years than on the presidential years, but I also understand and that's.
Well, actually, that's sort of
High turnout too.
yeah, it might be an interesting compromise. Because everybody and their brother's coming out for presidential. And then for an off-year election, for congressional, not everybody comes out for those, but more than if it's not a congressional, so.
What were the numbers? You gave us numbers of.
I think it'd be easy we could bring those in to our next meeting. But I think you're gonna see a pretty huge difference. Even the votes for mayor, like, I know in presidential years, there might have been 30,000 votes for mayor.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
What about midterm?
And in midterm, it's down to about 12,
It's
15.
Yeah.
So it's half. And that's okay too, but
30% for a congressional for turnout.
And you're like
You were
40 to
right,
50
numbers,
for Congress.
But we were high at 65, 55, somewhere in there for a presidential and on a off year election, yeah, you're down to 10, 15%.
Well, Okay, so John, you're, if they went along with the 4-year term for mayor, what's your sense of what they would want in terms of the timing?
Well, I only heard one comment on that, and that was, I want everything in odd years. Everything, all elections.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, the reasoning was we don't want to ask people to come out and vote every year. I think I heard that.
Well, they're gonna, oh, well, they would though, because
Oh,
they,
yeah.
even council members have.
But that's what was stated, I think.
Well, I also heard the comment on the type of voter,
Yes, correct.
you know, I can tell you that it's easier. I get it.
What was that comment? What was that comment?
Just that the type of people that vote in off-year elections are more focused, more informed. I took it as better. And I just don't agree with
That's
that.
not true.
I don't necessarily, I guess I'm not leaning more towards better, it's just that they're the ones. If they're more the target, they are the ones that they're more informed. I think maybe, yeah, I'm not necessarily saying better.
Well, and more.
But if
on
I'm
the inside story,
campaigning-
but maybe not necessarily on the issues. I don't think
But
they're-
again, wouldn't they still show up?
But it's-
Yeah, they're gonna show up every year because they're auto votes.
This is from the-
They can't wait to the next election.
I'm more
With-
looking at this
like
from the
us.
side, but I'm also that, hey, you've got as much right to vote as anybody else, and I'm all for the numbers. I
Fine, I get it.
I've delved into this for 20 years in San Marcos elections and knowing the data out there and what it takes to win an election and what it, all of these things.
It depends on the candidate too, because I've seen some that it can be an odd year, but you get a whole lot of people that come out to vote because they're interested in the candidate. So some of these people running for office might need to do a better job of getting the vote out.
Yeah.
That might be the issue too. I don't know, but I just think that whenever you have an opportunity to get as many people out, because I'm telling you, when people go vote, I've heard them say, I don't want to vote down ballot because I don't know anything about them. That's where your undervote comes from.
Yep.
So even people want to say, well, the college students shouldn't come and vote because they don't know anything. Some of them, we see them come to P and Z, we see them come to other meetings, and they're paying attention. So you can't really say who's knowledgeable and who's not. We don't know that. We just should be able to try to, and I can't imagine anyone in office wouldn't really want the true picture of how you got elected. So let's give everybody the opportunity to vote.
Yeah, I want to say one thing. I also heard, it wasn't just that they were better. That's my commentary, not what I heard from council members. But I did hear you get lost in the partisanship of a presidential election.
Well, they've turned our city partisans.
And so, a nonpartisan race, it's hard to break through and get attention. But I don't think the numbers bear that out. I really don't. We see higher turnout for nonpartisan races than we do in any other year. And so, but I did hear that a lot as well. And I think that's a valid point. You know, I got elected as mayor in 2016. That was a pretty divisive race, and I never felt like it was because of Trump or Clinton that I got elected, or I was connected to one or the other. I didn't sense that at all. It was strictly about my opponent and me. I thought. I could be wrong.
People look at every race and decide based on the candidate, but maybe I'm wrong.
Well, no, you're not wrong, because I had and Jim and I have worked a lot of races on campus, and, you have a lot of young voters. And we would get people that would come up to me and say, it's my first election. And I've interviewed all the other candidates. And here I am interviewing you and I have 4 questions for you. I mean, that's a
That's good,
big
yeah.
deal. And I hear it over and over and over again. And these are young people who are researching to get through school. And in my opinion, I can't say I've always done great on campus, but a lot of them have done way more homework than some of the longtime residents that I've talked to who, well, I had one person tell me people vote for crazy reasons, I heard you didn't put your shopping cart back in the shopping bin at Lowe's, which is absolutely untrue. I always put my shopping cart in the corral. But she told me I didn't vote for you because that's what I heard.
You know what? One time,
And you know this person.
somebody on campus,
Oh,
and
wow.
I said, and this person's candidate supports the river. And the student just started laughing, going, everybody says that. Everybody says
Yeah.
that. So, they are paying it,
They are.
They pay attention more than I think some of our residents do, because I've gone to forums and they pay attention.
So we're at 4 years, 3, 4, 3.
Yes, that's the
And
consensus
it's
that I heard.
when that 4 is. And then I do see kind of a tie back to what you were talking about earlier about if it's gonna be down the road a little bit, but if we do go to districting, that may come into play with those 3 years and how that all comes into play.
My guess is even if we came to an agreement on single member districts and recommended it, and council put it on the ballot, which I'm not sure they will, that would be for the next charter commission anyways. That's how long I think it would take to do single member districting, several years to implement it.
Up to 6 years.
I was just kind of trying to summarize.
Yeah. So I think I'm hearing consensus on it then. We'll recommend 4 years for mayor. We'll recommend we're keeping 3-year council terms. And at least at this point, we're, I guess, leaning, I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth. Do you want to give a year, congressional or presidential?
I like presidential, but I'm good with either.
Okay,
Because you get a high voter turnout in either one of those, so.
Yeah.
But I like the presidential just because I think that you get a better feel for people that might not take out the time to come when it's 1 or 2 people on a ballot. They may feel like I'm not gonna. go
so is
vote
your
for that
number first choice presidential?
Presidential.
Okay. Rob,
Congressional.
okay. Yancy? Amy? Jim? And Daniel?
Presidential.
So I think I'm hearing consensus for that and for 4 years. As presidential. Yeah. Thank you. Sorry about that. Yeah, so, okay. None of this is engraved in granite, so if new information comes our way at the next couple of meetings, but as of now, that's where we're at.
And then at one meeting, do we suggest a topic?
Yeah, absolutely.
Then is that what's next?
Yep, that's what's next.
Next
Because
on the agenda or next meeting?
next meeting.
Okay.
Because we got through all council priorities tonight, so I think that's a win.
Waiting on info.
Yeah, we're waiting on info. Yes, sir. I think that's I think it's a heck of a start. I really do. Yeah.
Good start. Good conversation.
Okay,
Yes, please. Yeah, if I can get everyone's documents from you, and then I have a question.
There are 2 documents from the right.
Yeah,
Let me show you.
Yeah, just leave it with us here and
and
get them to
also,
the clerk.
and also if I'm asked commissioners, because our packets are so thick, would you all like to leave your packets with me and I will disperse them at each meeting, or do you want to take them home?
I'd like to take mine to go over some things.
Yeah, I think I'll go over the charter. I think that,
Okay,
Yeah.
so y'all are okay with me not making any more copies of the-
Yeah, let's keep these, save some trees.
And because I'd like to go over the one I really previous.
Yeah. And start, if you want to go through, and there's something jumps out at you that you really want to discuss, I mean, it's open for any discussion on any charter item. But we will go, section by section. And have a short explanation of what the section's about, and then, if that's all right with you guys, that's what we did the last time, and it was really pretty smooth.
And the beauty is that y'all cleaned up a lot of stuff last time. You made things, hit them state law and things.
Is
There may not be as much.
Is there
Now,
It is the city's constitution, and it's
Is there
not
anything
willy
else from
nilly.
state laws that council really didn't pick up on, anything we should know of? It's
Not-
changed.
Not specifically, I give you an example that there has been some discussion of giving the city clerk a little more time to count, to verify signatures. Right now, we have projects, 45 days, and believe it or not, it's a lot of work to verify the signatures. Can we,
Is there anything else anybody wants to bring up before we adjourn?
The same time, same place, 5:30.
so what should we be prepared to bring our own list of what?
Yeah, as I mentioned, if we go section by section, you can jump in any of your priorities during that section, and that way we'll make sure we didn't miss anything. And, if that's, bring it all back, yeah.
That way we can look at it.
Yeah.
You're gonna sit there with Jim.
Yes,
yes,
And if that's all right, then, I think we can just adjourn the meeting, right?
yes, sir.
So I'm gonna, if there's nothing else, I'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Okay, and we're adjourned.